Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mac. Boys and girls, put on your pursuity pants because we are talking about missiles. We're talking about satellites. We're talking about storms. We're talking about donkeys. I bet you didn't think we were talking about donkeys today, did you? Yeah, but we are. So that's a horse of a different color. Hey, I'm over here on Gab. I set up a new one right here. Hopefully this one will work. This is gab.com/IPOT1776, just like my Twitter, IPOT1776. Won't you give me a join over here on Gab? Now, I do want to mention that I probably won't be super active other than posting videos and stuff over here. But as things come to a head on Twitter, or who knows, at least I'll have this Gab. But at least one is up. I will change this down below in the video description, so you got yourself a new Gab channel to find me if things go down. And check out my sweet profile picture there. Man, I'm looking ripped. Yep, it's exactly. I do CrossFit. I do PX90X or whatever. I don't know. I do push-ups is what I'm saying. I'm looking sweet. Anyway, give me a join on Gab. Let's get started. Starting off today's show, we are taking you back, but not way back. It's not a flashback of size. It's more like a, hey, remember this? Anyway, I tweeted this on the 28th of August. 42A donkeys. Let's check it out. We're over here on WNEM, otherwise known as WNEM. The Mojave's Desert donkeys are turning up dead with bullet wounds. Nobody wants to see dead donkeys. Someone is shooting the Mojave Desert's wild burros dead. Officials say now they're offering $18,000 to whoever helps nab the suspects. Over the last 3 months, Bureau of Land Management officials have found the bodies of 42 donkeys covered in gunshot wounds near the California-Nevada border. They were killed illegally in the Clark Mountain herd area. We will pursue every lead until we've arrested and prosecuted those responsible for these cruel, savage deaths, and we welcome the public's help to bring the perpetrator or perpetrators to justice. BLM Deputy Director for Policy and Programs, William Perry Pendley, which is a pretty sweet name, Willie Perry Pendley. Yeah, I like that. So, I don't know about this story, and maybe if you live in the area, you've heard about this, but I thought it was just very interesting at the time. Here we're talking about donkeys, and of course, when we think about donkeys, we think about Democrats. We think about Democrat donkeys, and you think about 42 Democrat donkeys, I think about one of our former POTUSes, right? So I don't really know if this was some sort of just random story talking about donkeys, but it kind of piqued my interest, right? And, here was the story about these burros, and then I didn't really hear much about it again. Maybe they nabbed the suspect. Maybe it was nothing at all, right? Fair enough. So WNEM, who had got their story from CNN, posted this story about 42 donkeys getting shot. Sounds pretty terrible on the surface, and maybe there's nothing more to it. I'm perfectly happy to accept that. And that's what I did. I sort of just left it alone. That was until that fateful day, which was just essentially the other day. CNN posts another video, this one right here. This nonprofit has rescued thousands of donkeys and burros. And the video itself doesn't seem very nefarious. This guy doesn't seem nefarious or anything like that. It's a story about this guy who rescues these little pygmy ponies, and they're pretty sweet looking. Who wouldn't want a pygmy pony, right? But I just found it very, very interesting that CNN was running a couple stories in regards to these donkeys. There had been previously these 42 donkeys being shot, and now they're trying to rescue the donkeys. Is there a little theme here, or am I just going a little bit nuts? Don't really know, but he's got a pretty sweet farm, and I kind of want a pygmy pony. All right, so let's back away from the donkeys for just a minute, because I realize that it might be something, but it also might be nothing. I just want to plant the seed. What I do want to talk about is this thread right here from 3 Days, 3 Nights on Twitter. And we covered a previous thread from 3 days, 3 nights just the other day in my video, Dorian. If you've not checked that out, I highly suggest you check that one out first, because it'll probably make a lot more sense as we go through this thread. It'll be a lot of relevant information. But we've been talking about the storm Dorian. We were talking about, in particular, we were talking about the shipping company Maersk. We were talking a little bit about Disney. We were talking about the path of Dorian. So go check that out. And if you've already done that, then you're like, all right, Patrick, let's just move on. Just get on with it now. All right, cool. I will. Let's do it. You go first. Oh, no, I got to go for you. How do you nuke a country without them knowing they were nuked? If a Cat 5 hurricane hit a nuclear plant dead center and at the exact same time an underwater nuke was set off next to it, would the resulting nuclear meltdown look like a Chernobyl-Fukushima incident? Well, that's a pretty good question, and 3 days, 3 nights references this post right here, 1448 from June 10th, 2018. Where Q says, FF being false flag, weather alert worldwide. Stay vigilant and maintain situational awareness. All right, fair enough. Did CNN knowingly schedule the timing of its Wednesday the 4th climate crisis town hall to coincide exactly with the expectation of a radioactive fallout cloud from a nuclear meltdown at the Port St. Lucie nuclear plant? Okay, well, that's a lot to chew on right there, right? First of all, we would have to assume that humans would be possible, that it would be possible for humans to commit that kind of behavior. I do want to point out, if you guys remember the Jussie Smollett incident, in which he was found with a noose around his neck, was oddly coinciding with Kamala Harris and Cory Booker's legislation in regards to anti-lynching. So is it possible that politicians do this all the time? Now, would this be dealing with a nuclear meltdown? That's a pretty big thing. But 3 days, 3 nights offers some pretty compelling information here. But they did have this climate crisis town hall. And of course, it was just a carnival of errors, right? So is it possible that they might have expected something? Not really sure, but I think we're going to find out. Did you know that on Sunday, the 25th, that would be last month, all the early Dorian storm tracks showed a promising young hurricane that was estimated to strike the Port St. Lucie, is that Lucie nuclear plant, PSL, dead center as a major hurricane. Yes, and we knew this. We knew that was the projection, and we weren't really exactly sure where it was going to hit, right? What are the odds that on the Sunday the 25th, while Dorian was a small storm, that the MSM would leak a story that Trump said he would nuke a hurricane to stop it from hitting the U.S.? Did Trump's NSA have intel that they were planning a false flag weather event? Well, we do know that he kind of made this offhand reference, right? And of course, Trump does that a lot, and then the media takes it and they run with it. And I usually think this is very, very clever, because outwardly, obviously, POTUS is perfectly happy to look stupid about referencing these things. He doesn't really care about the backlash that he gets. But the point is that people are talking about it. And if it's a future-proof pass for them, then it's probably worth it. He can kind of remind people, well, remember when you were clowning me about this? This is all stuff he may have a last laugh on. But we do know that he said it. It was very, very odd. And even Hillary Clinton piped in with that, which I thought was very interesting. Dorian was growing larger, and on Tuesday the 27th, would you be surprised to learn that CNN released the schedule for its climate crisis town hall to fall on Wednesday the 4th, just a day or two after the estimated destruction of Florida. Excuse me, I'm talking about September 4th now. So very, very possible. Opportunistic, perhaps. Yeah, it seems like maybe they were kind of waiting for something to happen, and of course, if something did happen, they could all say, and today's great tragedy is exactly why we need to do ... Here's our Green Deal. On Wednesday, August 28th, Dorian passed directly over Epstein's torture island. Were they trying to destroy evidence? Were they trying to harm Puerto Rico because they needed money? Did we attempt a counterattack to weaken Dorian to protect evidence? Well, here's where I don't really know. I couldn't tell you. I think they're all good questions to pose. I suppose all of them are possible. There could be a lot of other options too, but I don't think it's not plausible. But this is very curious right here. On Thursday, the 29th, CIA tweeted, "We're in the business of anticipating things before they happen. Hashtag PSL." Then they showed a pumpkin spice latte. What if CIA was signaling that they knew Dorian was a weapon heading straight for Port St. Lucie or Lucie, or I don't know. I guarantee you I'm going to get 100 of emails telling me how to pronounce it. But you understand the idea. Port St. Lucie, PSL, and here are the cups right here. So this is very, very curious. And I remember this tweet and remember thinking that it was very, very curious. I think this is a great, great decode. Were you aware that on Thursday the 29th, Trump received this Dorian weather briefing with the first map showing a dead center strike on Port St. Lucie? We now have Trump's nuke comment along with PSL target and the CIA using the PSL term. 3 things. On Friday, the 30th, Trump cancels his trip to Poland and retreats to Camp David for the weekend. Trump makes his remark about a dead center hit several times. Was Trump required to go to Camp David because of a nuclear threat at Port St. Lucie? Well, if he's going to go someplace safe, Camp David is definitely going to be it. So I think that there's a possibility to this. It would seem that he's not just avoiding a storm, right? If it was just a storm, I'm sure there's plenty of places he could go, and he could just fly out to the West Coast or whatnot, but they took him to Camp David. Imagine a Category 5 hurricane striking dead center on PSL. Now, imagine a pre-staged sunken container from a ship or a mini-sub following the storm detonating a nuke underwater right next to PSL. Could this create the illusion of a Fukushima meltdown? Well, I don't really know. Not sciencey enough, but I think it's a pretty clever question to pose. What are the odds that suddenly on Sunday, September 1st, as Trump calmly emerges from Camp David, that Dorian storm forecast would project a northward turn after hitting the Chinese and Maersk ports in Freeport? Did we counterattack Dorian right back at them? Yeah, and if you referencing my video entitled Dorian, we were talking a little bit about Maersk, the shipping company. And I also want to memorize you that back in, I believe it was 2004, there were a couple Navy SEALs that they were evidently attacked. The outward story was that they were attacked by these Somali pirates. But when they ended up, they were found dead, a couple Navy SEALs. And when they did the autopsy on them, they found drugs on them. And so this was a very, very strange story. And I referenced that in my Dorian video and on Twitter also. But anyway, this ship was from Maersk, and it was entitled the Maersk Alabama. And that was a reference that Trump's been making about Alabama, that the news has been clowning him about, saying that it was possible that this storm could be hitting Alabama. Then CNN comes out. They misnamed Alabama on their own map. They recorrected it really, really quickly, but it seemed like there was some sort of code being discussed back and forth here in regards to Alabama. But the original projections of the storm did show that something was going to get hit in Alabama. And I just wanted to point out that that ship from the Maersk back in the day was called the Alabama. Now, I don't believe it's with Maersk anymore, to be fair, but I just wanted to memorize you of that. But let's move on. Trump's military would never risk an innocent person's life unless we had to save millions of innocent lives. Was our military forced to stall Dorian on Freeport on Monday the 2nd to permanently eliminate their ability to cause a nuclear meltdown at PSL? Well, I think you're showing some pretty good evidence that it's possible, for sure. On the 3rd, Dorian makes the miraculous north turn while downgrading from Category 5 to Category 2. Ask yourself, have you ever seen a Category 5 hurricane stop in its tracks for 36 hours and then turn harmlessly north while barely touching our coastline? No, I've never seen that, but I'm not really familiar with hurricanes, so I will allow for the possibility that it's happened before. Just seems very strange to me. On Wednesday the 4th, Trump's map has a marker hand-drawn in Alabama. What if Trump is signaling that he knows they plan to detonate a nuke next to PSL right behind the storm to create a massive fallout cloud that would extend all the way to Alabama? And that was the little Sharpie Gate incident that everybody's talking about right now, which of course Trump turned into a massive troll and started selling Sharpies like a winner. On Wednesday, September 4th, we had the CNN Climate Crisis Town Hall with all 10 Dem candidates. Yes, that was an all-star weekend. Great timing. Is it possible they were expecting to gleefully discuss the destruction of Florida along with a nuclear meltdown and fallout cloud drifting to Alabama? Well, it sounds pretty extreme, doesn't it? However, it also sounds very, very plausible. And of course, the timing is impeccable. It's downright democratic, socialistic. The timing of this event is democraticistic. Let's move on. How can you explain this image where they renamed Alabama as Mississippi? And that's the one that I just showed you when showing Dorian warnings. Was this code to warn their producers to drop any prepared references of a mass exodus of people to Alabama that were fleeing for their lives? I think that's a possibility. I have another idea too, but I do think that's a possibility. But yeah, either way, they did mislabel it. Now, they corrected it within 30 seconds. They got clowned big time, and they even kind of lashed back at it. But it did seem very unusual. Would it be convenient for them if a climate crisis storm was blamed for poisoning the red counties in North Florida with radioactive material while making Disney off limits for evidence gathering like Chernobyl? Wasn't that on Netflix recently? Ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you honestly that I ever would have imagined myself talking to all of you about the plausibility of what 3 days and 3 nights just presented. And yet here we are. You decide. On Thursday, September 5th, Dorian wandered north, and the eye wall briefly touched a tiny barrier island just north of Bald Head, North Carolina, named No Name Island. Was this the military's way of letting us know we survived this battle and the good guys won? Red October? Well, I think you put together some really nice evidence, 3 days, 3 nights, and I'm going to let you guys decide for yourself what you think. But I think it's very compelling. I think the story is very interesting. And for those of you who have not been following QAnon very long, I want to also remind you, too, that in reference to this No Name Island, No Name is a reference to Senator John McCain. If you want to look more into that, you can look back into some of the older Q posts. But Q has always referenced John McCain as No Name. We don't say his name. Our friends at the NSA also tweeted about PSL twice last week on the 27th. Why is everyone talking about paid sick leave? There again is that PSL. Of course, we get that here. PSL. How about that? So, are our intelligence agencies just looking forward to the fall season so they can get all up in their pumpkin spice lattes and everything else that they all get into during this season? Pumpkin spice donuts and whatever. It's not pumpkin. Or is there something to this Port St. Lucie theory? You decide, but I think there's some really, really compelling information there. Thanks again for the thread, 3 days, 3 nights. I also want to share this with you. This is Octothorpe on Twitter, and that's like Maplethorpe, but it's like 8 of them. Here, Anons, I present you Dorian Signal Intelligence Corona 1 through 8, MOL being Manned Orbital Laboratory. Well, let's take a look, see, shall we? From Military Wiki KH-10, Dorian. Byman codenamed Dorian was the classified designation for the reconnaissance mission and equipment of the Experimental Manned Orbiting Laboratory, otherwise known as MOL, also inaccurately referred to as Gemini B. The system's mission was obviously optical regarding the presence of mirrors. Yeah, they had tons of cameras and stuff like that using mirrors. Think mirror, but also had a secondary signals intelligence collection mission. And here's a little schematic of the bad boy. The KH-10 Byman, codenamed Dorian, was a classified designation for the recon mission and equipment of the Experimental Manned Orbiting Laboratory, being the MOL. Super cool. A little bit about signal intelligence. Signals intelligence, often contracted to SIGINT, is intelligence gathering by interception of signals, whether between people, communications intelligence, COMINT, or from electronic signals not directly used in communication. Electronic intelligence, otherwise known as ELINT, or a combination of the two. As sensitive information is often encrypted, signals intelligence often involves the use of cryptanalysis, and that's the analysis of crypts. No, it's not really. Also, traffic analysis, the study of who is signaling whom and in what quantity, can often produce valuable information even when the messages themselves cannot be decrypted. As a mean of collecting intelligence, signals intelligence is a subset of intelligence collection management, which in turn is a subset of intelligence cycle management. All right, very, very nice. And this is a little bit about the MOL, the Manned Orbiting Laboratory, also known as KH-10 or Keyhole-10 or Dorian, was a manned reconnaissance platform developed by the U.S. Air Force and prime contractor Douglas Aircraft Company in the late 1960s. The crew was to launch and to return a Gemini B capsule, which was launched attached to the MOL. MOL would support up to 40 days of military reconnaissance using the Large Optics KH-10 Dorian imaging system and signal intelligence payloads. For later missions, also a side-looking radar payload was planned. 2 unmanned test flights on Titan 3M boosters were planned for 1970 and 1971, with manned flight to begin in 1972 at a rate of 1 per year. MOL was canceled in 1969. Translation: we started doing different things and stopped telling you in 1969. The Donkey signal intelligence payload originally planned for MOL. Wait a minute, let's back up, rewind. The Donkey signal intelligence payload originally planned for MOL was transferred to the multi-group 2-setter 1B Donkey signal intelligence satellite and was launched in 1967. So we're talking about donkeys? It's almost like I was just talking about donkeys. When KH-10 was canceled in 1969, the unmanned electro-optical KH-11, I don't know if that's Kennen satellite, succeeded it. And down below, you see the references here to the different coronas, KH-1, KH-2, and so on and so forth. How about that? Taking you back to the 23rd of November, 2017. No. Post 216. Q says, keyhole, happy hunting. Well, we just heard Octothorpe referencing keyhole and corona, right? Well, we actually have talked about this before. Check this out. This is my video from August 31st of 2018, a little over a year ago, entitled NSA CIA Shut 'Em Down. And we talked a lot about this stuff here. And as you can see, I've got the screen shot here on this corona. I just want to read you the top part here. 20 years ago this month, the world learned about the existence of the first imaging reconnaissance satellite codenamed Corona. It's hard to imagine a world without Google Maps or satellite imagery, but when Corona was developed in the 1950s, satellite photo reconnaissance didn't exist. Okay, so this is what we were referencing to Corona, but what about Keyhole? Well, Keyhole was a corporation that started in 2001. It got swallowed up by Google in 2004, I believe it was, and when they absorbed that, that was a big part of adding to Google Maps. Keyhole was a digital 3D mapping company. Of course, we see now what we see now with the googly maps, and that's what makes it so unique. So this is our Keyhole Corona connection, right? I want to take you back to these posts from 2008 up to 2019. So this was posted again a little over a year ago, August 30th, where we saw all these different coronas. We saw the Snow White. The Snow White was in reference to other satellites that were up in the air. The CIA has a bunch of different satellites named after Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So we already kind of knew that. And we were talking about these coronas, and it looked like Q had shut this down, hence the title, Shut 'Em Down, right? And it went all the way through these Corona 4, Corona 8, Corona 16, and it culminated in post 2019 where Q says Big Bird, excuse me, let me get it a little better there for you. Big Bird 9 offline. And Big Bird -9 was in reference to Keyhole -9, or the satellite known as Big Bird, or what appears to be the precursor to the KH-10, which is the Manned Orbital Laboratory, otherwise known as Dorian. I know, right? All this Dorian talk's got my brain all mixolydian. That's a music joke for those of you who didn't get that. I want to take you to this tweet from ABC News. If the chorus of Fly, Eagles Fly, or EAGLES chants become too overwhelming for fans with sensory needs at Lincoln Financial Field, the Philadelphia Eagles took a big step to make sure those fans don't have to leave the event. Okay, well, outwardly, this sounds really great. Something nice to do for some of the special needs kids, right? I get that. But it seems very, very strange. This tweet seems a little bit out of place. I'm not really sure what to make of it. But more importantly, it reminds me of this right here, QPost 180 from the 22nd of November 2017. I know, and that's just one day before we got the Keyhole post. How about that? And Q was responding to an Anon who said, why is LRD being Linda Rothschild chatting up Eagles on Twitter? Well, that's her team, but the chant, of course, is Fly, Eagles Fly. And you see, Q says, what U.S. president was nicknamed Eagle controlled by the United States Secret Service. Fly, Eagles, fly. And we've seen a lot of different names put in between these. I don't know if you want to call them, I don't know what you call them now. I used to call them pound signs, the number sign, the hashtag sign, whatever you want to call it. But we've seen this, and I've said over and over and over again that I thought they were talking about satellites in reference to that. Considering I see this in the very same day as all this Dorian talk, I couldn't help but remember this Q post, Fly, Eagles, fly. Interestingly enough, Eagle was the nickname for Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton being the 42nd president of the United States. That's funny because they just found 42 donkeys shot. Oh, the humanity! So, is this our Dorian, a second reference to our storm? Is the storm coming by the way of some intel gathering? Either way, it looks like our Category 5 is now starting to give a little chill, and Alabama is going to finally be safe. And this is a tweet from your President of the United States. Yep, there's really no words for this right here. This is just trolling brilliance right here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is troll level Space Force. Yes, yours truly, the President of the United States of America, tweeted a GIF that just shows a cat and a laser pointer and a map. And I just think this is the best thing I've ever seen. In other news, you may know that Jim Watkins, 8chan owner, went on OAN to get interviewed by none other than Jack Posobiec, the Sobes himself, the one who was going to take down Q, was going to neuter him. Those were his exact words, was going to neuter him. Well, Jack didn't even ask the question about Q, even though, as you can see in the graphic right here, he had a big fat Q pin on his lapel, and the Anon here makes the note that we got ourselves a little 5-5 right there in the screen.
Gotta see it?
Yeah, it does gotta see it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. Anyway, I didn't see anything real crazy on this interview. You can find it over there on BitChute. It's probably up on YouTube at this point. But Jim Watkins did state that 8chan was likely going to go back up real soon, and they've got kind of their own little answer to Cloudflare, which suggests to me that there's going to be a new hosting platform, and I've kind of suspected that for a while. There's been some talk about it for some while, but I didn't really want to say either way. I wasn't really sure where this was going to go. I think a lot of us didn't really know, but it looks like it's probably going to go up again. We will probably get some Q posts again after that, and as soon as we do, I will keep you posted. All right, Patriots, that's all I got for you for now. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who do that already. I greatly appreciate it. If you're new to my channel, welcome to you. Please understand that you're going to get unclicked and unnotified and unsubscribed from time to time. It happens on all of our platforms. Do me a favor, just check yourself back and re-click yourself, re-notify yourself, resubscribe yourself. I would greatly appreciate it. All my alternate links are down below. My Gab, my BitChute, my Real.video, which is now Brighteon.com. Do me a favor, if you're over here at Gab, join me over here at Gab.com. IPOT 1776, same as my Twitter at IPOT 1776. And if you're on Twitter, please join me over there at IPOT 1776. That's where I usually provide a lot of my snark when I'm not making videos. But we're going to try this Gab thing out one more time. All those will be linked down below. My email is down below if you'd like to send me some information. And my P.O. box is down below if you'd like to send me something old school. And of course, if you'd like to support the channel and keep me making these videos, my Patreon is linked down below. It's all down below in the video description as well as the show notes. All right, kids, this is Sir Patrick Mack. Until next time, stay frosty.